Person has a slight injury. The recovery period is a lot short, is not that long. A more serious injury, it's a longer recovery period. Another injury which you develop an infection where you need medication, the recovery is even longer because since not only do you have the injury, you have the infection, you need medication. And what about if even medication is not enough? Sometimes you need surgery to cut out the area which is diseased. Identically, when we sin, the different levels of transgression. A person does not fulfill a positive commandment. A person does not say the Shema. A person doesn't eat the matzah at the Seder. So the person violated a positive commandment, did not fulfill a positive commandment. For that, to be able to rehabilitate yourself, to be restored, it's enough just to do tshuva. You have remorse, you commit yourself to the future. Excuse me. The person's fully rehabilitated. What about a person violates a negative commandment, which the person proactively violated, went against the Torah? Person ate not kosher. Person spoke lashon hara, spoke something he shouldn't have spoken. For there, stop for a moment. That it's not enough just to do tshuva. You need tshuva, and you have to wait for Yom Kippur to be atoned. The holiness of the day, the overwhelming level of mercy of Yom Kippur, together with the tshuva, allows the person to be fully restored. What about if a person violated something which carries a more serious liability? Not only did he violate a negative commandment, he violated something which carries the liability of spiritual excision. Person ate on Yom Kippur, which is much more serious. Person ate chametz on Pesach, which carries the liability of spiritual excision. For that, tshuva and Yom Kippur are not sufficient. For that, you have to have some degree of suffering, whether it's financial, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental. Only the three together, a state of tshuva, remorse, commit yourself not to go back there again, experiencing the holiness of the day of Yom Kippur. In addition, you have some degree of suffering. The three together, the person is fully restored. What about if a person, he violates something which he causes a desecration of God's name, which is very severe? There, the person does tshuva, repents, Yom Kippur, he has some level of suffering, physical, mental, financial, whatever it is, still not enough. To be fully restored, the person only with death. If the person is still in the state of tshuva, when he dies, the transition from the physical life to the spiritual existence, that experience, which is, there's a degree of pain there, that transition completes the tshuva, that restores the person fully. So based on the degree of transgression, the degree of deficiency, which the sin causes, to that degree, that's what you have to do to be able to be restored. I'll give you an example. Sometimes you see these pictures. See, Larry's off. These miners down in South America, they have these mines. They have to go down 3,000 feet below the ground into these mine shafts. And then afterwards, there's a cave-in. So they send down these like cylinders where a person goes in. It's just enough for the body of the person. They send it down. The shaft is about a few thousand feet down. They put them in this capsule. They send them straight up. But based how deep that mine shaft is, that's how deep that capsule has to go. And it pulls them up from the depths of the center, from the bowels of the earth. He's pulled back to life. That's because he has to be pulled up from such a deep level. The deeper the hole, the more you have to be extricated and pulled back to get back on a normal level. based on the level of transgression, the degree of deficiency, what we bring about. So how far did you regress? To what degree do you have to recover? And based on that, the degree of the recovery, that's what you need to bring it back to be restored. It's called restoration. You know, in English, there's a term that if I cause you a financial damage, I'm a damager. So the payment for a financial damager, a damagee, he pays restitution. Why is it called restitution? Because he's restituting, he's restoring you. By giving you the financial value of the damage, I'm restoring you, putting you back financially to where you were originally. Person that causes, it was this person a number of years ago. He said he was careless in California. He said forest fire caused millions of dollars worth of damage. Man says, you know something? I'm going to buy boxes of Smoky Bear cookies, you know, to teach kids they should be careful, you know, Smoky Bear. You got it. Paying 59 cents for Smoky Bear cookies, even if it has a kosher certification, it's not going to get you out of that hole. You could just cause something, so much suffering, so much tragedy. You displace so many people from their homes. You think you can get away with paying $1, $5, $100? You know, he should be put in the cell and thrown away, put in the clinker and throw away the key. If you fully appreciate what you did, how severe it was. So based on the severity of the transgression, that's what you need to restore the person, to bring him back to where he should have been originally. That's the understanding. You know, the Mesilas Yesharim, Rabbi Luzzatto, in his work, Path of the Just, explains that the only antidote to the evil inclination is the study of Torah. If you want to get a level of clarity to take control of your life, you need a degree of spiritualization to be able to internalize the truth of doing the wrong thing. Otherwise, you don't have appreciation. So the Mesilas Yesharim says, but why can't I do it differently? Why do I have to study Torah? Why can't I do whatever it is? I'll be careful. I'll make a vow not to cross lines. So he explains, who created the evil inclination? Who created the human being? God. Nobody knows exactly how to deal with these issues, only Hashem himself. He's telling you, this is the only way. The doctor prescribes a certain kind of medication. You need a certain medication, antibiotic, to destroy the bacteria. The man says, well, why can't I eat bananas and eat tangerines, right? And drink smoothies every morning, you know, and you'll add the coconut and the whole wheat, then you'll throw some sardines in there, right? Why isn't that enough? Because if you understand the nature of this bacteria, the only way you can deal with it, you have to use that specific antibiotic. Otherwise, it's not going to destroy that bacteria. That's the reality. Only God knows exactly how to deal with all these issues. So to rehabilitate the person based on the degree of regression due to the misbehavior, what we violated, to be able to get back to yourself to a functional level, you have to do and follow God's prescription, which is A, B, C, D, and E, and sometimes you even have to die to be fully restored. Without that, it doesn't work. Now, a person, God forbid, loses a limb. Person says, you know, why can't I get some, you know, some tiger glue and reattach the limb with some kind of glue, you know? Doesn't work. Because if you understand what it means to reattach a limb, you need a level of microsurgery. And certain things have been destroyed in the limb, you can't reattach it. You can only restore the soul if you do certain things. You follow a certain process. It's not restored. Many years ago, I had two students, two sisters. They were doctors. And one was a doctor, MD. The other one was an endodontist. Two sisters. And these two sisters, all their cousins, I once told over the story, were all doctors. Medical doctors, psychiatrists, all. And the matriarch of the family, Her son has a famous psychiatric clinic in New York City. It's called the Sanger Clinic. Sanger. And there used to be a restaurant on the east side. It was called Greener Pastures, if you remember. Okay. So the younger of these two sisters got engaged, and they had an engagement party. So I was the rabbi of both of these sisters. So I went to the engagement party, and all, the family was there. Most of them were not observant at all. These two girls, they were observant, fully observant. Even though they weren't raised observant, they were fully observant. And their great aunt, the mother of this Dr. Sanger, was an elderly woman, maybe a woman in her upper 70s. And she comes over to me, she says, Rabbi, my nieces and one time they used to eat in my home. They don't no longer eat in my home. My home, because it's not kosher. But why? Is it so terrible if they don't eat kosher? What's so terrible about it? That was a question to me. So I said to her, I said, Mrs. Sanger, I want to ask you a question. I said, do you eat on Yom Kippur? She says, I've never eaten on Yom Kippur. She's not an observant woman. Never. Since I'm a little girl, I never ate on Yom Kippur. I never will eat on Yom Kippur. I said, and if somebody would offer you food, would you eat it? He says, if somebody would offer me food, it wouldn't go down my gullet. I would choke on it. There's no way I could eat on Yom Kippur. I said, why? The answer is because it's so ingrained in you, understanding, not that you understand why, but because that's the way you were raised and conditioned, you don't eat on Yom Kippur. But if you really understand why, you'll understand why exactly you're not supposed to eat on Yom Kippur. I said, you're a mother of many, all your nephews and nieces, doctors, and your son's this famous psychiatrist. You have a person, he's a cardiac surgeon, and there's a specific procedure how to do the transplant. They have to open the chest and cut through the rib cage and so on and so forth, and attach. You as a novice say, Doc, can I ask you a question? What do you have to go through the chest? Why can't you go through the back? What do you have to do the procedure in that manner? So the people who have the medical education look at this person said, this guy's coming out of the woods from somewhere. He's like he was raised in Boontown. What kind of question is that? Because this is the way you do it. There's no such thing. Go through the back. There's a very specific procedure. Go through the back. The man, you don't never get to the heart. The person dies on the operating table. That's why. If you understand the nature of why God says things should be done, it has to be kosher, not kosher. You compromise your whole essence, your soul. Why? Because if you know why and you be educated sufficiently, then you understand why. Just as if you would understand why the procedure has to be done a specific way, you don't understand why. Same idea. So you should be proud. Your nieces are observant. They studied. And they understand exactly what God says. That's why they can't eat at your home. No different than understanding what the doctor knows due to his education, the same idea. Since then, this story goes back maybe 30 years ago, maybe more. I've become even better with allegories, equivalent cases. Guy's supposed to take his medication. He's a psychiatrist. And he can already predict on day one if he doesn't take his medication exactly how he's going to behave. He could predict on day 3 what he's going to behave. Day 1, he just breaks the windows. Day 2, he becomes an arsonist. Day 3, he takes the house down. Okay, how do you know? Are you a prophet? Understand the nature of that chemical imbalance. That's the way it goes. It goes from bad to worse. Same idea. You don't have to be a prophet. You just have to understand the nature of the issue. People that pay for a course, it's called Outback. It's to be taught how to survive in the wilderness. You find yourself in the wilderness, you don't know exactly what do you eat, what could you eat, what can't you eat, because there's certain herbs that are beneficial, other herbs are poisonous. So you have to know. And if you're not trained what to eat and what not to eat, either you survive or you die, one or the other. What's potable water-wise, what's not potable? Has a certain color, a certain stagnation, you drink it, you may be satisfied for the moment, a few hours, it's over. I had a case many years ago. This couple, they were married. Today they live in Israel. Probably today married about over 40 years, but just about. And the two of them, they had wanderlust. You know what wanderlust is? Wanderlust is they love to travel anywhere in the world. They're traveling. They had a need to travel, the two of them, the husband and wife, but it mainly came from the wife. So they were traveling to Africa. Okay, so Rabbi Pinto told them and advised them that when you travel to Africa, make sure don't sleep outdoors. Why? Because when you're going in Africa, in the trees, there's snakes, and as you're sleeping, one of these snakes could fall from the tree, and they could actually be bitten or strangled. Therefore, he warned them, don't sleep outside. Okay? They had to take about 3 weeks of inoculation when they went there because they'll be exposed to certain types of diseases and who knows what else to be not to be immune to whatever's there, malaria. But they have wanderlust. What do you do to satisfy that wanderlust? You get inoculated. Okay. The wife was very, very confident. She's going to tackle. They went to the Congo. Yeah. They're going down a river on one of these boats, and the boat hits something, and some of the water splashes onto their skin, on the wife's skin. This water is so infested with microbes and who knows what, that it's able to go through your skin and you could die from it. That's how bad it is, with all the inoculations. But she wasn't counting that this water would splash on her skin, but she read about it. When that happened, she had a meltdown. Meltdown. All of a sudden, it became wanderlust, not wanderlust. She was wondering, why did she go to this place? You understand? But she understood what the potential of that is. She could die from it. It enters through her skin, through her pores in her skin. It can actually compromise her life. That you understand. But when it comes, then God tells you this will compromise you. And ultimately, you may forfeit your eternity. You know something? It tastes good. It smells good. I'll do what I want. And, I'll fly off the cliff with the car and I'll believe it's going to fly. It'll fly. The question is where it lands. That's a whole different discussion. Rambam says in number 4, Aval pi tshuva mechaperes alakol. Tshuva atones for everything. Ba'atzul shom Kippur mechaper, and the essence, the whole leaders of day of Yom Kippur also atones. Yeshaveru shem skaper l'shatom. Certain sins that they atone immediately. You're reinstated immediately. Yeshaveros she'em mechaper elachazman. Others takes a while. You have to wait to undergo certain experiences. Ketzat, for instance. Over odom al mitzvahs asay shebo koris. Person violates positive commandment, which doesn't carry the liability of spiritual excision. As I said, one doesn't eat matzah at the Seder. One doesn't eat in the sukkah. Well, you should be eating in the sukkah. Okay? It's a positive commandment. One doesn't say the Shema, which is a positive commandment. And what does he need to be reinstated? Vasa tshuva. And he repents. He has true remorse, commits himself. He will not cross that line again. Eino zos misham et shemochnoso. He stays in that place. He has a right to demand to be forgiven, because since he met whatever is needed to be fully reinstated, he'll be fully forgiven. And there's a verse that supports that. Shuva bonim shovavim. Errant children, return. Erpa b'shuvasechem. I will heal you when you come back. So the healing is immediately. It's interesting, in the pharmaceutical industry, if you have drugs, there's an expiration date. And the drug, if it's past the expiration date, the drug is not as potent as it is if you use it within the time that you're supposed to use it. So what do they do with these drugs? They send these drugs to South America. That's what they do. You know, expired food, expired medication, everything goes to South America. What do you think Goodwill Industry does with the used clothing? They put them in bales, they send it down to South America. You know, if a person violates a positive commandment, tshuva alone is enough. Tshuva is potent enough to resolve the issue. But let's say you did more than violate a positive commandment. You want to use something that doesn't have the potency to deal with the issue. Tshuva is not sufficient. You need something more effective. Okay? One violate a negative commandment which does not carry the liability of spiritual excision. It does not carry the liability of the death penalty. Also tshuva. Does tshuva toler. Tshuva holds the negative effect in abeyance. Yom Kippur mechaper. When Yom Kippur comes, the person, in conjunction with the repentance, you'll be fully restored. Ube'elu nemar, there's another verse. Ubiyom hazer yichaper aleichem. On that day, referring to Yom Kippur, you'll be atoned. So you need the day itself in conjunction with the tshuva, with the repentance, to be restored. Okay? So the negative effect is held in abeyance. It's toler. You have no negative effect yet. So when does it fully kick in fully? That's when Yom Kippur comes. Okay? Overall, krisus umises bezna. Person violated something which carries liability of spiritual excision and the death penalty. Vosa tshuva, and he does tshuva. Tshuva Yom Kippur in tolling. Tshuva and Yom Kippur hold the negative effect in abeyance. The surin habon olov, and the suffering which comes upon him, whether it's physical, financial, mental, emotional, gon mesek hapora. It completes the atonement. You're almost there, but not quite. You ever see a computer go on, you have that white line, goes and goes and goes. Sometimes it just gets stuck. And finally, it shoots straight across. Then the computer goes on. Then you get the picture. Understand? Now, many years ago, somebody used to come to Yarav Rum, when Norman used to blow the long shofar. Norman, we won't forget about you with the long shofar. So there was a person named was Bruce Rappaport. He lived in Geneva. He was an oil magnate, plus many other things. Born in Israel, and he was the same age as Mr. Glick in those years. He used to visit. He was a very wealthy man. In those years, when there weren't many billionaires, he was a billionaire. And he used to come to Yad Avram, and he used to visit once a month, and he'd come for early in the morning for the classes. He loved to learn, although he was not a fully observant person. And he was one of a kind of storyteller. And he told over a story that this person owned a donkey, and this donkey was like a miracle donkey. This donkey, he loaded it up, and the donkey's a beast of burden. And all you have to say to this donkey, please, donkey, walk. And the donkey listened. Okay? So this person was a farmer. He heard about this donkey, and he needed that kind of donkey. Rather than dealing with the donkey, stubborn as a mule. So he calls the man up, and he says, I mentioned buying you donkeys, no problem. Come over with your pickup truck, pick up the donkey, picks up the donkey, pays him cash on the barrel, drives to his farm, loads him up, and he says to the donkey, please walk. Donkey doesn't budge. He says, maybe he didn't say it loud enough. He screams, donkey, please walk. Doesn't move. Finally takes the donkey, starts pulling it. Can't pull it. Gets all his farm hands. They're pushing it. They can't move this donkey. He realizes he was cheated. He was fooled. Calls the man up. He says, I thought you were an honest man. I see you're a cheat. You cheated me. He says, what's the problem? He says, I followed your instruction. Donkey doesn't listen. It's not what you said it is. He says, impossible. He says, I'm coming over to your farm. Comes over to the farm, and he sees the donkey's loaded up. He says, show me what you did. And he says, donkey, please move, please this. Donkey doesn't budge. He says, I forgot to tell you something. You got to, before you say, please walk, please this, please that, you have to do something else. He picks up a block of wood, slams it into the temple of the donkey, and after he slams it into its head, he says, donkey, please walk. Donkey walks without any hesitation. You understand? Sometimes you got to hammer it into his head to understand what you're talking about. Otherwise, they don't understand the language. That was the story. That was the punchline. You got it? That was the punchline. But that was the grand slam. Okay. And that's exactly it. What do you need to take you over the hump? Person violates something which is unconscionable. Well, I said, I'm sorry. It's not going to make it happen. It's not enough. Well, I paid for my ticket. I went to synagogue on Yom Kippur. And I heard the cantor. Not enough. You got to suffer. You have to have some kind of setback. Okay? What did he do? He overpaid for a candy bar. Not enough. All of a sudden, he gets a call. Your main company you invested in stock market, they went broke. They went bankrupt. Oh, is that what happened? You could be dispossessed from your apartment. The sheriff's coming to put you on the sidewalk. Okay, now we're talking. Now you get it. And now now you remorse. Because now, until now, you thought you dictate your life. God calls the shots. That's the way it works.